Greetings everyone. We hope you are enjoying the 2021 Ubud Writers and Readers Festival. Thank you for joining us for today's book launch, King by Ray Shabir. The moderator for this session is Laksmi De-Neefe. During the book launch, please keep your mobile phones on silent and do not use flash photography. For the most up-to-date program information, please refer to the program changes page on ubudwritersfestival.com. To enter our venues, please install the Peduli Lindungi application and bring your first vaccination card. Please follow our health protocol throughout the event by wearing your mask at all times, washing your hands regularly, and physically distancing from the crowd. Please join the conversation on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Ubud Writers, and always use the hashtag UWRF21. Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome to the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival of 2021. This year, the festival returns with the theme Mulat Sarira, self-reflection, which is drawn from a Balinese Hindu philosophy. From October 8th to 17th of October, we will explore the meaning of self-reflection, cultural introspection, and human rights, examining who we are, what unites us and divides us, and what drives our actions. So, I'm so hungry, I could eat the whole world. This first line from the book gave me such an excitement to go and dive into Ray Shabir's poetry. So let me introduce myself. The first time the festival started, I was only 7, and I never thought I would be on the Ubud Writers Festival stage. So I'm very happy to be here, especially to launch the book of Ray Shabir, a writer, an artist, born and raised in Jakarta. Ray seeks to create visual landscape that expresses his reality beneath its soft reverie. I first met Ray on Instagram because I saw your work through a mutual friend, and then we ended up working together, and now we're here. Yeah, so let's start. Do you want to read us something from your book?
Sure. First, I would just like to thank you, Wijad, and everyone from the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival for having me here. It's quite a while away.
Yes, thank you everyone who's watching at home and everyone here.
Yeah. So the first poetry of the book is called Apocalypso, and here it goes. I'm so hungry I could eat the whole world. Starve me and watch how I chew on my soul. When I want, they never let me. When I need, they never respect me. In fear of not knowing how to be cherished, I pray to a God that wants me punished. In fear of the wrong destiny catching up to me, they said God has made me an enemy. They say to be hungry is to be beautiful, but how did my appetite become so political? How can I learn to love life when nothing ever rhymes? How can I be here for a good, if not a long time? I'm so hungry I could eat the whole world after putting death into a tight chokehold. When our bodies touch, you'll remember the heat. I exist way too much, so you can die just a bit. Apocalypso, apocalypso, apocalypso. I'll scream your name when the rain is ours. So yeah, that's the first one. Thank you.
Especially hearing you read it out loud. So when was the first time that you encountered poetry, and did you write a poem straight away after that encounter?
Well, I don't know if it counts as poetry, but I would love just listening to music, and then, being 14, 15, everything seems to be like, this is so deep. And then I would just try to write, imitating the way they wrote it, but made it my version. But then it would have a copy of the same thing, because I was copying a songwriting structure. So I would have the verse, and I would repeat that as I was writing it, as if it was a chorus too. So yeah, and then I grew up, my guidance counselor in school told me to read Pablo Neruda, so I was reading him. He was actually, I think, one of the first poets I've ever read. And then, really dive into. And then, yeah, I think that started that propels me to start writing poetry.
Okay.
Yeah.
The music part makes so much sense now.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and also, by the way, I visited Pablo Neruda's house.
Oh wow, how's that look?
Amazing, yeah. So this year's theme is Mulat Sarira, or self-reflection. Tell us what you think about self-reflection, and have you done a lot of it with writing, or has writing helped you with self-reflection?
I think after a time like last year, we're kind of just forced into being stuck at home and do some self-reflecting. But in terms of writing, I always kind of do it for whatever projects or books that I was doing. Like the first one was clearly about the anxieties and entering quarter life crisis, so I put that out. And when I got the chance to write that book, the pressure wasn't necessarily can I write or not, but it's just about what should I write. And that ended up being what it's about, because that's also the anxieties I was feeling in real life. And then with this one, it also comes in I try to force an essay book for my second one, because I thought people really enjoyed the essays from the first one. But that wasn't, I think, what I needed at the time, and I did a little bit self-reflecting and just ended up writing King. Yeah, and writing does help a lot, because what's funny is you realize one thing before you write it, and then you did, and then you open up a box, and then after it's done, it opened up another box. So I think even the book's meanings for me changes throughout time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And do you think it would be different if you sort of didn't self-reflect through writing?
Yes, but I wouldn't see it any other way.
Yeah.
Because that's how I do my self-reflection. Even when I don't always understand what I'm saying or why I'm writing this. But yeah, it definitely would be different, it would be boring, I think.
I mean, also for me, I don't see another way to self-reflect than just sitting myself down and writing about it.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to ask you the obvious question, like what inspired you to write this book? Like what made you, like, you have to write this?
It's funny because one of my friends was releasing her 7th book, and I was like, oh wow, what's gonna be my second one? And then the title just came to me. I remember I wrote a poetry about porn that I wrote in college, and then I was, oh wait, and then I hear kink in my head, oh, let's just build something out of that. So it was kind of decided, but then as I progressed writing it, it changes every time. I wasn't always sure the direction that I was going with kink. With Public Feelings, I made literally an Excel spreadsheet of this. It's 20 chapters about 20 different anxieties. So there's marriage, breaking up, moving apartments, finding a job, loneliness, and all these things that we are afraid of or thinking about during our quarter life crisis. But then with this one, I just kind of threw that Excel and just write whatever made sense to me at the time. And yeah, so this is a product of that.
Yeah, I guess that sounds similar to the pandemic. Everyone had before the pandemic, like a structure to their lives, and then they just have to like throw it out and then go with the flow.
Yeah, go with the flow, exactly.
Yeah. So why is it so important to you, for you to express your emotions and eventually share it with the world?
It was, I did a bit of storytelling that you were in, and I was telling how sometimes with the problems in life and you can't always take care of your own story, so you ended up releasing it and then eventually putting it out for people to make sense of it however they may. And that's when I released that first book, I would get messages from people just telling stories about their life, like what were they feeling, or and not necessarily about the book too, like my grandfather was sick, or just like chatting and talking. We ended up talking, and oh right, and this is probably what, because stories by the end of the day unites us, and I guess that's why I write. I don't know if it's cry for help. I don't know if it's trying to help someone else, but it's always this big release that I was yearning before I made a reading book. So yeah.
But I also like what you said the other other day about validating our stories by sharing your own.
Yeah, because I don't want people to just focus on my journey or my pain or whatever things that are happening in my life, but also kind of validate their own stories and see if I can make a book out of it. If I can make something out of it, then you can too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a book, but maybe just power up your.
I mean, at the end, it's easier to live life when you share your pain with others, or you're sharing happiness, going through life together with someone.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of pain, your first book is about anxiety, and the second one is about pain and desire as well. You want to share something about dealing with pain?
Dealing with, well, I write, that's one. But then I realized, like, me putting books out doesn't mean that I'm solving it, that there are works that goes into healing and making a rise out of your pain, and yeah, it's that was the shock for me, because I thought if I had write it out, these are my anxieties or my issues or my stories in life, so I write it out and then I'll manifest them into life, and because I made them, I can destroy them. Because if I solve it in the book, I can solve it in real life, but that's not the case. And the actual work sometimes has nothing to do with books, poetries, or music, or whatever thing you're making, and that's the thing that I had to really learn and lean into.
Yeah, even if you solve one problem, life always has problems, unsolvable problems. And I guess you'll never run out of things to write about.
Fair.
So, the next question. What's different about this book to your first? And tell us the differences of your experience writing your first book while traveling to New York, and your second book while typing away like Carrie Bradshaw in your bedroom.
Well, the first book was parts of it were done partially when I was in New York. The book was set in New York, and this was done partially in my bedroom. And the difference is I was going out. Obviously, I was going out for the first one, and then this one with Kink, I was going in. So I had to make sense of why am I putting this out? Like, am I being honest with what I'm writing? Because I can always tell, and my friends could always tell if I'm lying or if I'm not being clear on whatever it is that I was writing. And the difference also technically is I made a deliberate decision putting a structure with public feelings, even though it's seemingly chaotic. But then with Kink, I threw that out the window and just write and just hash out and then do a little bit of editing.
And in terms of like motivating yourself or scheduling yourself to write, what were the differences?
I don't do that. Like
tell us about how you work, like the process.
If there's a funny thing or something that I discovered in my life, I would like put it down my notes, but then I would just make the time to sit down and actually hash it out. But I don't particularly have a routine. I know some writers like wake up really early and then write, edit their previous day's work and then write a new one. Yeah, but I don't do that. I just write, and it's poetry, so sometimes I write it on my phone. Okay. Sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. and just type. Some of the poetries here are done in like 2 minutes, so and then I didn't edit it, aside from grammar. So yeah, I don't really have a structure, so scheduling was a nightmare, basically. But once I felt the book was complete, I can schedule like the editing and the layouting and everything,
So this is a question that I want to know, I'm curious about. How do you want to be seen as a writer?
Never thought about that. An honest one? Maybe an honest one? Yeah, an honest one.
An open book.
An open book.
So you wrote in your new book, quote, I write not of important things, but of beautiful things. I want to know what to you is important and what is beautiful.
Well, what's important? Well, I guess I guess that's me kind of being tongue-in-cheeky a little. I was being cheeky when I wrote it, because I feel like with the response of the first book, people either take it way too seriously or not seriously enough. So I was just, oh, I'll do me. So in the end, I wrote something that I think is beautiful and also important to me. So that's kind of like a lol sticker at the front of the book. But what's important and what's beautiful, well, going back to being career bachelor during the pandemic, I guess that's also kind of funny to me when I'm writing about heartbreaks or being in pain, but then the world is actually sick. The world is actually in pain and there are bigger things. And I don't feel as a person I lack self-awareness, but that's also raises the question of am I allowed to validate my own pain? And the answer is always yes. It doesn't really matter that this happened to you or not happened to you. It is yours, you know? And you can be sad while the world is sad, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, to me, beauty is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially like coming from a design background.
Yeah.
And it brings so much happiness. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe now from our situation with the COVID, like having so much sadness that we need beauty and we need entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's also what I love about poetry, that I can paint my own picture and have my own interpretations and changing it based on how I feel, or sometimes, as I told you about that one poem that we're gonna read soon, how the meaning just changed after I read the notes.
Oh yeah.
And what do you want to project to your readers? How do you want your readers to feel? Like, have you thought about?
That's the thing. When I write for myself, so I always forgot that other people are gonna read this, and then it's always because I've said my piece, right? I've typed the words, I've printed the books, I've put it on sale. So whatever people's take on it, it's always interesting to me. So I always ask them, which one's your favorite piece, or why do you like this one? Because my favorites are never people's favorites, which is amazing. I get to have like a say a little bit. Especially with the first book, Public Feelings, it was about different anxieties in different chapters, right? So whenever people have a favorite, it always kind of tells where they're at in their life instead of me. So it's like, oh, you like this one because you're probably feeling anxious at this particular issue. So I don't really, once I put it out, I already know that it's not necessarily mine anymore. So I already have that letting go, like bloodletting before I put it out. And then I got really sad for a day and then I jumped back in again the next day.
Yeah. But I feel like the conversations that you have with your readers are very interesting. And the one you told me about the other day where someone sort of like analyzed your whole life.
So somebody I think took psychology and he made this essay on the blog about quarter life crisis and kind of dissecting me as he was dissecting the book. And that was like it was like a wow moment because as I was reading it, I was agreeing with him, and then I was like, I think I was here, and then he wrote that exact thing that I thought was like, whoa. So yeah, it's really funny.
This is mind blowing. Also, like the conversations that you make. That I also feel like sometimes reading, I'm making conversations with the writer because when I read, I have my own memory, so it's like I feel like it's, when we're talking about one memory and then
your response is it is an exchange.
That's simple. And I want to talk about Milk, one of the poems in your book. I found it interesting because I read it and the meaning changed after reading the notes. How it was.
Can we read it and then I read the notes so people...
Okay, let's read it and see what people think, and then we'll read the notes.
So this one's called Milk. This was fun because I was house sitting for a friend and she has this fridge with these like word magnets, so the first sentence were made out of those magnets. Okay, milk, here goes. We swim in an enormous lake made out of milk, swimming until forget about our bodies, floating in an expanse that doesn't care about where we started or where will we end. But come here, tell me, Where do you think we'll end up in? Well, don't ask me, because I was hurting long before I hurt. Should I be angry at the world? Should I be angry at myself? Should I avert my eyes when I recognize the screeching sound a car makes when it crashes into another, or when it crashes into water? Whom do you think we should blame when nothing seems to be more delicious than a youth that is broken? Not even the milk that we swim in, no matter how sweet, no matter how condensed, no matter how well it hides the body stuck down there, unbothered and arrested in a white Holden Commodore that God left there without ever knowing why. Well, don't ask me, because I got no subtlety for grace. So that was with the poetry, and should I read the notes? Yes. Okay. So I put like notes at the back that give context to some poetries. Note refers to the tragic case of Robert Farquharson, where a father is convicted for driving his car into a dam, resulting in the deaths of his 3 children in rural Victoria, Australia. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with no minimum term and maintained his innocence. So yeah.
Like, how did you tell us the story about this? How you made this poem? Like, how did you find this tragic story? And
well, this story, I'm a big fan of true crime, and I listen to true crime podcasts. And when I listened to that episode of Robert, it was really sad, because it was really sad if he did it on purpose, but it's also really sad if he didn't. He lost 3 children. And then as I was house sitting with my friend, we would go to trips to beaches and swim in milks and swim in like lakes and swim in lakes, and I was just wondering, I see this like vision, or not vision, but like a visual of me and my friends sort of living this like young adult TV show kind of like life, like with a montage. But then things like Robert's case happen in the world. So where are we with that? So we're swimming. Is this image of me and my friends swimming in a lake? But then I also kind of just paired up with that case, because it took me quite like a while to be not shaken up about that particular case. And to see that me swimming with my friends, but then there's a car. What if there's a car down there with remnants of a family's life? That's and I literally wrote in the book, well, don't ask me, because I don't know either. Yeah. So that's one, yeah.
And I also want to talk about I didn't know how to say it, but
it's yeah, you're writing it. You're saying it right.
Yeah.
Well, it was a fun one that I thought was Hose's poetry. This is so funny. Should I? Okay, let's see. Table of contents. Sorry, guys. It's around. Okay, here it goes. Commodify your mom, commodify your dad, commodify your blood, don't let them see you sad. Commodify your pride, commodify your babe, commodify your vibes, commodify your shame. Commodify your goals, commodify your dreams, commodify your friends, put them on the live stream. Commodify your heart, commodify your brain, commodify your body, commodify your pain. Commodify your pain, commodify your pain, commodify your pain, commodify your pain. Commodify your pain, make them pay for everything. Commodify your pain, make it rain, don't make it rain. So that was just a funny one that I wrote for this scrapbook of essays that I was doing. It's about social media, and it's put them on the live stream. Like how far are you letting up your personal life and public consumption? How far are you, like, who are you selling for? What are you selling for? And yeah, it's just kind of like I like when I always try to not write an iPhone or like a tweet, or something technological that kind of puts a time context within the work. But then with this one, I kind of want to check in. This is what was done in 2020, so I was kind of want to check the marks of people also being at home and being online and just staring at their screen and looking at lives, you know, because it was really surreal for me anyway. Like, rest in peace, this person. Oh, a new clothing collection, and then oh, there's this dinner party, and then oh, plasma needed. So that's kind of like how we lived for a few months, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I just kind of want to clock it in there.
Yeah, and everything happens so fast. So I think it's so important to have conversations about social media, because we're living in this new like, social media age that has been boosted by the pandemic.
Yeah.
Everyone is just on it.
Yeah.
For me, that was an interesting piece. How does social media, of course it influences you. I'm sure it influences everyone, but how does it influence you, or tell us maybe?
Well, it's a good, it's especially with Instagram, it's very visual, and a lot of, before I finished the poetry, or when I was writing a poetry, like that visual key points would help in my head, so I guess it's a good reference point. But then sometimes I need to like shut down and just be quiet and let things fall where they may, where there's not too many noises. But I don't really, I don't think kink will happen if I didn't see my friends posting my 7th book, you know, so there's that. And it helps, but you just know when to log off, I guess.
Yeah. Like your work is not something that is pop or mainstream. And how did you manage to get it published by one of the biggest publishers in Indonesia?
Well, to me, I love a lot like pop culture references, or just pop culture in general. So to me, it's kind of pop, even when it's not. It's like DIY pop. It's not glossed over. I think my publishers just kind of stuck with me at this point, and they like when I did with the first book, and I did an exhibition for the first book's launch, and then I sent them the manuscript for the second one. They're just kind of like, okay, sure, you know. They're kind of let me do my own thing, which I really appreciate. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, we need more people like you in Indonesia, young writers and poets.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of undiscovered talents out there. Yeah.
But also, you're such an artist because you did almost all the work for the design of the book, and it's such a beautiful book inside. Can we talk also about the cover and even the title?
Oh, well, the cover is, I've always wanted to have skin as the cover, and it's actually my palm, the palm of my hands. And if we had more budget, it would have had like another paper jacket, and then so it's inside, it's like a skin, and then it's inside like the pink illustrations. And I don't know, I just see it just makes sense to me. And it kind of, I like when you're folding it, it's like you're holding my hand. And it's kind of cheesy, but I just went for it. And also it's what's inside is inside of my skin. This is what's in, like the poetries are inside of me. So also it makes sense in that sense, I guess. I've always known the skin is just gonna be there. But what were you asking? The design?
The title.
The title.
The title of one of the...
one of the poetries. Well, kink it just kind of came to me, and it's a cop-out. It seems like it's magical, but kink. Yeah, we're going with that. It just makes sense to me. And I work well with titles too, so a lot of the poetries from the book was because I wanted that to be the title. Like I have one called Jailbreaking Tesla, which is a song by Injury Reserve, and I just want that as a title, and I kind of take it and make it my own. I put it in my notes, so I referenced it.
Yeah, I really like the skin because I didn't know, from seeing it on Instagram, I didn't know it was a picture of
my hand.
Your hand.
Yeah.
And seeing it, I was like, oh, that's cool.
What did you think of it?
I love the skin. I thought that it would be also cool. I like also the gloss, but it would be also cool to have like a textured.
That's what I want.
Like cover.
Yeah, that's what I want. That's
then
what I
you feel
want.
like you feel the texture of the skin.
Yeah, that's the. If I ever release a deluxe version, that would be it.
Oh
Honestly.
my gosh, great minds think. Yeah, so, but I read that you had a really hard time designing your book,
Yeah.
and you almost gave up until you found the work of Audilian Radon.
Yeah.
How did you find him, and can you share?
I changed the design for the inside around 3 or 4 times, but I guess the visuals were too visual, and it kind of distracted from the poetries. And I already did that with the first one. I kind of incorporated the visuals with the text, but then with this one, I kind of just I feel like I'm more confident as a poet and a writer at this one, so I kind of want that to shine more a little bit. But then I also know, I want visuals in it because I love it. And my brother told me to go to like the Met Museum's website, and apparently they have a lot of free copyrighted images. So I just browsed like thousands of artworks, and when I found his works, Redon's work, it was just this is cake. This is this fantasy reality mermaid devil angel kind of vibe that I really want. And I when I hit one of his image to the layout, I was just, oh yeah, we're going with this realm now. We're going art history again.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah.
What about?
I'll give you the website.
Okay. What about the paint, the color?
Oh, the paint.
All over.
Oh yeah, the book. Well, I turned it all pink to again let the text sort of like be in contrast from the visuals, and kind of just make a like let the visuals take a back seat almost. But also, I just see pink from the very beginning when I make pink. I see red when I make public feelings, and then I see pink and actually green, but I didn't end up using the green. Okay.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, that's how I work sometimes. I just see this vivid colors for the first book, and then with this one I want pastels, softer color. We're going, I don't know where we're going with this, but that's the universe, I guess.
Do you think that came from like your design background?
Maybe, yeah.
And I want to ask also about what made you decide to structure the text in this particular layout, and was it influenced by studying architecture?
Well, the design background actually helped to find references, but as I was putting the words into the layouting program, because I'm the one who wrote it, so I know when to take. This is where you take your breath. This is where you break a bit, and this is the underline of what I kind of want to say. So I just let that. It was done very organically. I just read the poetry, and then when I put it in, oh, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, and the visuals. Some of the pieces doesn't have any images because I think it was probably strong enough, or it doesn't really matter if it does or it does not. But some I for sure play along with the pictures as well, like with the snake. It's just like, oh, and there's the scissor too. So just like, oh, there's a scissor, so I'm just gonna like work my way around this, you know. So it's that's how it kind of works. You just put stuff into the computer. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the part that you enjoyed the most? What was the most fun to do? Was it the layout?
Oh, the writing.
The writing.
The writing for sure. Because that's the one who kind of surprises me most. It's the one where I have more surprises and more enjoyment in being surprised. Oh, this is where we're going, and I've published my first book, so I already know what I am able to write, I guess, in a sense. But then with this set of poetry, there's stuff that I'm writing about the Middle Ages. I'm talking about Egypt now, and right. Like that's been pleasantly walked down through for me anyway. But the layouting was like also fun. Like when it's not fun, you'll know it's not working out. That's how I work. But this is not fun. Let's just forget about this.
Well, to me, the photo shoot looks fun. I love what you did there. And can you tell us a little bit more about the photo shoot, like why you decided to do it? And
so I did a photo shoot to campaign this, I guess, the book, because I also model at the sides. on the sides, and I just see like a very domineering but evil figure, and a submissive but weak figure, and it's all kind of me. They're both me, so I just portray that. But the funny thing is, when it was done, I didn't see myself at all. It's because I was the one editing the photos again.
Okay.
Yeah, because the photographer was his family had COVID and he couldn't like finish it.
Oh.
And I had let me just edit the photos myself, and I didn't recognize me. And I know it's my face, I know it's my eyes. I also like wore a wig that goes like down here, and it was my friend pointed out maybe that's the point. Maybe you don't want to see yourself. So in these portrayals, so that's
an interesting. Yeah, good to have a point of view.
Yeah.
Oh, you also have like a list of all these people that you thanked.
Oh yeah, like my friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
How important is it to have like a lot of opinions and a lot of guidance for you?
Well, I have like maybe only 2 friends that give me technical advice on the poetry, but the rest I just thank them for being there for me, I guess. And we kind of keep each other in check, especially during the pandemic. That was really, really helpful.
Okay, yeah.
And the guidance part is I really needed it sometimes, because when you're writing a poetry, each poems kind of live in their own universe, and you have the advantage of knowing what actually happened, but then what makes sense to you may not be making sense to other people. So I have friends who, you kind of have to, this is you trying to be edgy, scratch that, focus on this, elaborate on this, and then kind of just make the poetry, like build it into something that is more strong, I guess.
Yeah.
And that really, really helped me.
Yeah, this might be interesting for those who just started writing, or maybe who wants to publish their work. Like, how did you, or how do you find the
I was like
mentors?
Well, one of my friends worked in my publisher, so we met there. But we ended up really becoming really good friends, and after she left the job, she stayed friends with me. And then another one is he just happens to be a journalist that worked in New York, and then he moved back to Jakarta, and he's now doing my next book, I guess. So I just literally found him. It's like through friends of friends, and that's the thing. Like, I didn't really realize the importance of a good editor until I know editors are important, but then with I think with Kink, and then the next one is the one that really felt my editor friends are the ones that really felt like helpful and really, this is where we can go now, with a stronger body of work.
Yeah. And maybe like while we're talking about this, how did you get your first book?
It was through somebody that I knew. She was she worked in the publisher, and she was looking for somebody to fill in a photo book, to make a photo book. And she asked me to make a photo book, and I did kind of want to do that because I have photographer friends and they don't have books. They should have 10 books before I publish my book, like a photo book. And I'm not a photographer per se. So, and I told her, but I actually write too, by the way. Here's some of my old writings. If it's chop, we can do this. And she was really down, and then she sent it to the publisher, and I worked mostly with the publisher since. They're really happy with what I put out with the first one.
So it's all about like making the connections and finding people who can support you. I want to talk about this because I love it as well. Can you tell us more about music and how it influenced your work? And I also realized that you even curated a playlist on Spotify for this book.
I mean, I told you I discovered song lyrics and kind of try to mimic that structure when I started writing poetry or writing at all. And then music is just really, really a important part of my life. And some of its lyrics made its way to the book, and like Jailbreaking Tesla, the title I took from a song, and it's just it inspires me a lot. And I never shy away from like referencing an artist or referencing a line from a song, because it made sense for me and also for my own personal story. Oh, this happened, this song was playing, I don't know, just put it in there, and but I always credit. It's very important to credit, and kind of just want to put an homage to them. And then the playlist is just something fun because of the pandemic. I had to postpone my exhibition. I think I'm doing another exhibition for the book, and I just want to make something fun for people to enjoy at home, I guess, and kind of get into the. It's also world building, right? I made three playlists. I released one of them on Spotify and Apple Music. That kind of. So if the book is a movie, this would be the soundtrack. So this would be like the universe, like building aspect of the book, I guess. Because that's how I see things. And my friend pointed out to me when I first started writing, I kept saying to her, I can't see the universe, I can't see the universe, and I'm just like cracking at that door to kind of see what am I talking about, you know? And I did, thankfully.
And, well, as you said, like you wanted to create this world, and you also mentioned that you're interested in making movies or films.
Oh, no, it's just, I probably would. I really am interested in script writing, because writing for movies or being in a movie is also like, it's a very collaborative effort. There's a lot of voices in the room, and that would be interesting to have that exchange of ideas, I guess. But yeah, as a joke, I always say to people, like, I didn't write these books to become a writer. I just have a story to tell, but I happen to have a laptop, a camera, my Photoshop skills. So I could make a book out of those. So if I have a bigger budget and have the background for it, maybe I'll make a movie, you know?
That's an interesting thing also, that you sort of became a writer. Was it something that you wanted to do because you studied architecture? So was it like something that you've always loved doing but didn't want to become?
It's
you just happened to find it?
Until this book, I wasn't really sure of calling myself a writer, but now I for sure can call myself a poet. It's like calling yourself a baker instead of a chef.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Like specific.
Yeah. And with writing, it's so the range is so big. My friends do journalism, and I do personal writing, personal essays. So mine doesn't seem as serious as what they were doing because they're reading presidents and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's writing, and I don't do that. So and I'm not brave enough to do fictions yet. I guess to me, when you're a writer or like a fiction writer, like when you're making a fiction story, that's when you become a writer. It doesn't have to be that way for sure, but that's how I just kind of see it at first. But writing has been something that comes the easiest to me, and I don't care if it's good or bad. You know, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And now my second book.
Is that how you got the confidence to publish it? Because you just want to let it out without having any judgment?
I think, yeah. And if there is judgment, I wouldn't necessarily... I do put things into consideration for sure, but I write for myself. So as much as praise or criticism that I got from the book, nobody will ever know how I've gone through this and write about it, you know, so there's always that pull to hold on to, but I do appreciate some good criticism here and there, you know.
Speaking of judgment, you have haters.
Haters?
And how do you deal with them? Do you have like people on social media or your readers who are like...
I think people are never mean to me personally, but they get like, they become this like pseudo analysis of like public feelings, right? I wrote that book, the first book is about me crying in public in a place where nobody knew who I was, so I could just cry out whenever I want. But then people took it as if public apostrophe as feelings. So the book is seen as kind of irrelevant or untouchable because I didn't talk about what people are going to eat the next day. Like I didn't talk about the hardships of fellow men, and which I understand. Like I recognize my privilege. Being in New York alone is already a privilege. But again, they don't know like I work 2 jobs to make that happen. But I'm okay with it, and so they don't understand it per se, and just kind of took this title and ran with it. And it's interesting to see where people are at instead of turning it into me, I guess. So it's not really personal. It's just he expected something and he didn't get out of my book. That's the thing, yeah.
So that's by thinking this way, you kind of don't take it.
Yeah, I was a little bit like, when I first read it, because did I really do this? Did I really do this? Because he was like listing a bunch of things like hedonistic style, whatever. Like, did I write Gossip Girl? Like, that's where I went to, and then my friend like also like, yeah, but yeah, we're in New York, and not a lot of people go to New York. Well, yeah, that makes sense too, I guess. But then if I'm gonna talk about class differences, I'm not gonna make a book about it. I'm just gonna do actual work and help. I think
That's for me.
change, yeah, like as easy as that. And my friends were like bored and hey, do you want to make a video? And I was like, oh, could you do my campaign video for my reels, my first ever reels? Reels just hit in Indonesia, and it took down and do it. They can do it too. Again, not necessarily becoming a writer, but just be honest with what you do and have some conviction and passion and love for what you do. But as far as I can say, I can't really convince people if I'm being honest or not. And I just hope that it shows, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Does this sort of give you more satisfaction?
In the long run, yes. Sometimes when you are being honest, it feels like crap too. It's not always pretty, but then in the long run, you stand by what you do. You stand by what books that you've written, and you go to great with your work. That's what I believe in. I don't want to publish things that doesn't seem relevant to me or honest to me, even though I will grow out of it. I will change, and I will have more different truths in my life. Yeah, but looking back, I was always like in the first book, I was ready to hate it after I put it out because that's what people do. They hate whatever works they did before. But I, to this day, thank God I didn't hate it. I read it, like I laughed a little bit, have like a little sense of humor about myself, and oh yeah, I enjoy it for what it is, and oh, I'm not this person anymore. That's good, you know, like. But yeah, I always have some respect for that past, I guess. Yeah. Because my favorite, like, what happens if your favorite singers or bands of all time hated the stuff that they did 10, 20 years ago? But that's like the best album that you ever think of what they made, you know? And then they don't want to perform it anymore. It's sad too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you go to the grave with your work, and I wanted to go to the grave happily, I guess.
I love that. I love that you don't take yourself too seriously with your work.
Yeah, because it's also, you know, I don't want to be like correcting the past all the time. You know, okay, if the thing that I did last time wasn't great, I'll make a new one, a better one. You know, just go to the next one. You know, there's always that instead of nitpicking old stuff that you can't really change.
And questions. We have questions. Who's from? I don't know, but okay. The first question: have you ever reread your book and it feels different from when you wrote it?
Every time. It's with Public Feelings. Yes, I didn't read that book until like a year later because I was too much in it, and I was more excited about hearing what other people had to say about it. Not for validation or anything. It's just fun because it's for sure different than what I intended out to be. So it's a new story, and then I like to pretend like, oh, you wrote this because you mean this. I'm just like, yeah, and I don't let them make me seem smarter. You know, it's like, hey, true, yes, that could go as well. But with this one, I haven't really read it until just now, for the video.
Yeah.
Because again, I was in it too much, so I needed time to process it, to kind of get out of it a little bit and then check back in, I guess. Yeah.
I think that's an important process in like anything that you do, to like get out, take a step back and just pause until you go back into it.
Yeah. It means differently, for sure. Kink changes a lot for me. I intended it to be a pop poetry book, and make it like sexy. Let's call it Kink, you know? But it didn't kind of end up being anything like that, and me writing it was, I was having so much fun writing it, and then editing it was a bit horrible, because then it really shows how sad I was when I was writing it. And then when I put it out again, I felt a little bit more sadder. Like I was asking, like, who did I write this for? Me, obviously, but also why did I put it out? And then like my friends and some people messaged me about what they liked about the book or how it resonated with them, and that kind of, oh, okay, this is probably why people are enjoying this, I guess.
Yeah. And since you didn't have like a structure for this work, unlike your first one, how did you know that your work was complete? Like, when were you like, okay, I'm done, I'm happy with it, let's publish it?
So this book was, what's funny is some of the poetries in the book, like the last verse or stanza, probably has nothing to do with the poetry, but it connects you to the book. Because with this one, I kind of want to do a little bit of the universe building. So there is a way I arrange all the titles or the script, the book, like from start to finish. And I think I made a deadline for myself to okay, this is when I stop it. But then on that day, I ended up hashing out 8 more poetries that I worked on, because I was moving things around, and I was cutting things, and this has 2 endings, 2 closures, so I have to cut this and put this somewhere else. But then that ended up being a standalone body of work that I hashed out. So it was that day was actually one of the more funner days when I was working on it, because I was again figuring things out. Oh, I'm writing about this now. It was pleasantly nice, surprising.
Well, for the second question, I can answer it for you.
Okay.
Do you have any future plans in writing more books? Because I know you're writing your third book, so yes. And the last question, if you do have a plan to write more books in the future, what issues or topics will you like to cover? Maybe you can tell us a little bit.
Well, it's gonna be another poetry book. I realized I didn't resolve anything in kink per se. So it's I think it's gonna be the sister book to kink, but it has its own. I don't know what it's about yet. I have some pieces, an idea where I'm going with this, but it's too soon to tell. Because this didn't end up like what I planned it out to be.
Okay.
So I'm for sure think the next one will also be unexpected.
So do you think you've resolved something from your first one?
The first book?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to find the...
Yeah. I have to like put a closure to this, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, any more questions from the audience? Or just, if you want to acknowledge Ray.
Read more.
Read more.
Read more? Pick a
Read
number.
something. Pick a number.
1 to 57. 5? 5 is 12. Well, that one has a curse word, so I'm going to read the next one. Oh, yeah, this is
Yeah, you
fun.
can't curse when my mom's around. She's very sensitive.
It's called I Melt With You. You say love is the death of duty. I beg to differ, I beg to differ. You say the past is a sweeter place to be. Cry me a river, cry me a river. I melt with you, sharing the devil put aside for thee. I melt with you, dissolving fates into tragedy. Nothing else to do, standing on the edge of space oddity. I melt with you and all of you until no one can tell that once there were two.
Well, yeah, so I guess thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
being
much
here.
for having me.
And thank you for the book. I really enjoyed it. And
Thank you for reading it.
yeah.
And there's book signings.
Sorry?
Book signings.
There's a book signing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a
Well,
copy?
I want you to sign my
Oh, yeah,
book.
for sure.
And thank you, Ray.
Thank
And
you so
thank
much.
you everyone who came and listened to our chat. And yeah, I would just like to end by saying thank you for supporting the Yayasan Muda Swari Saraswati's Patrons program and to the festival's partner who made the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival possible. Follow at Ubud Writers Festival on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or visit ubudwritersfestival.com for more information about the program. Let's give a round of applause to Ray. Thank you. So we'll head to the book signing now.
And there's snacks.
And snacks. There's snacks there for everyone to enjoy.
If you require assistance,